My sister wanted to sell the cure that our grandmother created before she died, but what she didn't know is that this cure could destroy everything that was left of our family. It all started when we found a coded diary hidden in the basement of our grandmother's house, and a bottle with a liquid that glowed in the dark. I wanted to reveal everything to the world, but he wanted to destroy the evidence. And while we were arguing, someone outside already knew the secret and was coming after us. That night, the black car appeared on the road, and someone left a note on our door. He only had 3 words written: "Deliver the cure." The simple wooden coffin rested in the center of the village's small chapel, surrounded by wildflowers and the strong aroma of rosemary. Lívia watched the serene face of her grandmother, Dona Simona, covered by a white linen handkerchief, and tried to believe that this woman with calloused hands and a tender look had really left. The murmur of neighbors filled the air with stories of miraculous healings and unfulfilled promises. Helena, the eldest sister, kept her distance, her eyes dry and her countenance hard. It was as if he had returned only out of obligation. After the ceremony, the lawyer handed the 2 sisters a sealed envelope with their grandmother's wax seal. The will left the house in the woods to both of them, on one condition: that they stay there for 30 days before deciding what to do. "There are secrets that can only be revealed with patience," the letter said. Helena grumbled something about old woman's superstitions, while Lívia felt a shiver run down her spine. There seemed to be something hidden between the lines, something that the grandmother never wanted to tell. The journey into the forest was silent. The car drove up a dirt road lined with tall trees that seemed to close in on them like ancient guardians of the place. The sun set behind the hills, dyeing everything golden in shadow. When the gate of the house appeared, covered with ivy and moss, Helena let out a heavy sigh. "I never thought I'd step foot here again." Lívia, on the other hand, felt her chest tighten with longing. That house held the childhood that she was still trying to understand. Inside, the smell of dried herbs and ancient wood filled the air. The windows were covered with dust, and the shelves were full of jars and notebooks. Every corner seemed to sigh with memories. Lívia touched a bronze spoon that her grandmother used in potions and smiled, remembering the times when she believed that Dona Simona did real magic. Helena, impatient, opened the windows tightly, letting the light in. "We will clean this up soon and sell," she said. But something in her voice betrayed fear, not detachment. That night, as the wind blew through the cracks, Lívia dreamed of her grandmother. She was in the garden, picking leaves from a plant that shone under the moon. When she woke up, the smell of the same plant permeated the room, although there was nothing there. On the floor, near the bed, there was a dry, dark green and shiny petal. Helena said that she must have come from the old things in the house. Lívia, however, knew that it was not just a coincidence. Before the sisters find out what their grandmother really left hidden, subscribe to the channel. Here, each story holds a secret, and those who sign up find out first. The next day, the sisters began cleaning the interior of the house. The shelves were covered with books on botany, anatomy, and natural remedies, mixed with cookbooks and prayer books. Lívia was enchanted by every detail, while Helena only saw painful memories. "She believed this too much," she murmured, pushing a box full of herbs into the corner. "That cured half the village," Lívia replied, without looking up. The plank floor creaked with every step, and the old clock in the living room always read 3:15 a.m., the same time that, according to neighbors, the grandmother had died. The sound of the wind mixed with a faint hum coming from the walls, as if the house was breathing. "This should be demolished," Helena said. But when she tried to open the back door, it didn't move, as if something on the other side was stopping her. A shiver ran through both of them.
During the afternoon, while organizing books, Lívia found a locked drawer on the desk in her grandmother's room. He forced the lock and found a notebook wrapped in fabric, covered in strange symbols. "What's that?" he asked, turning the pages filled with drawings of plants and chemical notes. Helena turned pale when she saw the content. "Nothing you need to know," she replied, trying to get the notebook. But Lívia held on firm. "Why are you afraid?" The clash between the two grew. Helena insisted that they should burn everything they found, claiming that grandmother got involved with dangerous people. Lívia, intrigued, refused. This is research, not witchcraft. She was studying something big. The words echoed through the house, followed by a crack from the basement. A dry sound, like glass breaking. The two looked at each other, their hearts racing. "Is there anyone down there?" whispered Lívia. With flashlights in hand, they descended the narrow staircase that led to the basement. The air there was colder and wetter, and the smell of metal and rotting plants filled the room. When they reached the bottom, they noticed that the dirt floor was uneven. Lívia passed the flashlight over a wall and noticed something, a thin crack cutting the plaster. By pressing a point, a panel moved slowly, revealing a narrow passageway. Helena retreated. "You shouldn't open that." But Lívia, with her heart racing, took a step forward. The panel slid, revealing a small hidden laboratory. Glass vials, test tubes, Latin notes, and chemical symbols littered the bench. In the center, a vial of greenish liquid glistened in the dim light. The label only said, "Serum 47." Lívia lifted it carefully, and the liquid seemed to pulse inside the glass. Helena took a step back. She was really messing with what she shouldn't. Lívia, fascinated, opened the diary and tried to compare the formulas. "This is not magic, it's pure science." She was close to discovering something biological. Helena turned her face, distressed. She was trying to play God. The silence that followed was interrupted by a metallic sound outside, like a car engine. Helena ran upstairs and looked out the window. A black vehicle was parked on the road, with its headlights on, motionless. "Someone knows we're here." Lívia put the bottle in her coat pocket and closed the panel quickly. Helena turned off the lights, her heart racing. The car was still there, motionless, watching. The wind blew hard, and the trees around the house bent over, as if trying to protect something. That's when Helena said, in a trembling whisper, "Maybe we should never have come back." Dawn brought a thick fog, and the black car was gone. Still, the sisters knew something had changed. Lívia spent the morning locked in her room studying the diary. The pages were covered in a mixture of alchemical symbols and chemical equations. Some Latin words were repeated: memoria, curatio, sacrificium. Among them, a note stood out in red: "Healing is born of pain." Helena watched her sister in silence as she prepared coffee in the kitchen. That house was beginning to cause him physical discomfort, as if the past pulsated in the walls. "You're going to go crazy with this notebook," she said, trying to hide her fear. Lívia did not answer.
"This is a discovery, Helena. She was ahead of her time. This substance can regenerate degenerated brain cells." The older sister put down the cup. "Or it can kill, as it almost killed her." While flipping through the diary, Lívia found a map drawn in pencil with a circle marking the woods behind the house. Next to it, a coded phrase: "Where the first seed fell, the secret blossomed." She recalled her grandmother's dream of picking leaves under the moon. "Helena, I think there's something out there." But the eldest refused to go. "If it is, it goes alone. I don't step in that forest anymore." Determined, Lívia took a flashlight and left alone. The trees formed a silent corridor, and the air smelled of damp earth and fresh herbs. In the center of the woods, he found a circular clearing covered with emerald flowers. Among them, a wooden cross with the name Cheetah engraved. The grandmother had made her own grave. On the ground, a small glass jar buried in the earth shone softly. Lívia dug it up with trembling hands. Inside, there was a small sample of the same greenish liquid he had seen in the basement. Serum 47. On the glass, an inscription in Latin, Ad vitam verum, to true life. Thunder echoed in the distance, and she felt the weight of that discovery. When he returned home, he found the door ajar. The lights were off. Helena was sitting on the living room floor, panting, with her broken phone next to her. "Someone was here," he said in a trembling voice. The drawers were rummaged, and the diary was gone. Lívia ran to the basement and saw that the secret panel was open. Nothing had been taken except one of the vials. "They know what they're looking for," he whispered. Helena looked out the window and saw flashing headlights among the trees. "They're back." The sound of tires on the road leading to the village made them realize that they were being watched. Lívia turned off all the lights and locked the doors, while Helena tried to regain her calm. "That's your fault," she shouted. "If I hadn't touched these things, no one would know." Lívia replied in a firm voice, "They already knew, Helena. They were just waiting for your grandmother to die to come and get what was left." During the early hours of the morning, the wind shook the windows hard, and heavy footsteps echoed on the porch. Lívia held the bottle hidden in her pocket. The shadows moved outside. Helena grabbed a piece of iron, ready to fight. But the steps have stopped. Only the distant sound of a departing engine filled the silence. On the floor, in front of the door, someone had left a message written with charcoal. "Give away what is ours." The sisters spent the rest of the night awake, watching the fireplace slowly go out. When the sun finally rose, Lívia made a decision. If they want the cure, they're going to have to understand what it really is. Helena looked at her sister, confused. "What are you going to do?" Lívia replied calmly, "To find out how far Grandma has gone and why." In the following days, Lívia dedicated herself to deciphering the remaining formulas that she remembered from the missing diary. Using the notes found in the basement, she began to set up a chemical scheme on the blackboard in the living room. Helena watched from a distance, torn between fear and admiration. "You talk as if you understand all this." "I understand enough to know that she wasn't wrong," Lívia replied. As she rummaged through an old box, she found photographs of her grandmother standing next to men in lab coats. And, to her surprise, a badge with the logo of a pharmaceutical company called Gencor. Behind the photo, a note. "They promised to heal, they lied." The revelation made Lívia's blood run cold. Their grandmother had worked with them and apparently broken the agreement. "She's been hunted," he murmured. While examining the shelves, Lívia discovered a safe embedded in the wall. Inside, sealed jars, plant samples, and a rusty USB stick. Upon connecting the device to the laptop, files with clinical reports appeared, including names, diagnoses, and fatal results. "My God," he murmured. "She tested it on people." Helena walked away horrified. "Did she kill people?" "No," Lívia replied. "She tried to save them, but someone sabotaged it." In the middle of the documents, a familiar name appeared, Arthur Menezes, Director of Research at Gencor. The same man who had visited the house. There were emails showing that he demanded the original formula, threatening Donacita. A chill ran down Lívia's spine. "It was him. He killed our grandmother." Helena, trembling, took the USB stick and held it in her hands. "Then let's go to the police." But Lívia knew it would be useless. Arthur had too much power. That night, A storm came crashing down on the forest. The noise of thunder mingled with the slamming of the windows. While examining the shelves, Lívia discovered a safe embedded in the wall. Inside, sealed jars, plant samples, and a rusty USB stick. Upon connecting the device to the laptop, files with clinical reports appeared, including names, diagnoses, and fatal results. "My God," he murmured. "She tested it on people." Helena walked away horrified. "Did she kill people?" "No," Lívia replied. "She tried to save them, but someone sabotaged it." In the middle of the documents, a familiar name appeared: Arthur Menezes, Director of Research at GenCorp. The same man who had visited the house. There were emails showing that he demanded the original formula, threatening Donacita. A chill ran down Lívia's spine. "It was him. He killed our grandmother." Arthur, sighing, feigning regret. "She didn't want to collaborate. I hope you will be more sensible." Outside, 2 security guards appeared, blocking the exit. Helena held her sister's hand. "We are not going to give away anything." Arthur smiled, leaning in slightly. "Oh, you have already delivered. Time is running out." Lightning cut through the sky, and the light flickered inside the house. When he returned, Arthur was no longer at the door. Only one envelope had been left on the doorframe, wet by the rain. In it, a single sentence: "The cure dies tomorrow." The dawn was taken by thunder. The house shook with every bang, and the light flickered as if the place itself reacted to what was about to happen. Lívia and Helena couldn't sleep. The envelope left by Arthur seemed to burn on the table. When they opened it, they found a small bottle and a message. "The rest you have in the house. Decide before they decide for you."
Helena wanted to escape. "Let's leave before he comes back." But Lívia refused. "If we go, he will hunt us. We need to understand what grandmother left." She returned to the lab and began examining the remaining samples. Among the vials, there was a tube with a label almost erased: S47B. Inside, a slightly golden liquid. "It's a variation of the main substance," she murmured, mesmerized by the color. Using her grandmother's old microscope, she analyzed a drop of the compound. The cells inside it seemed to regenerate in real time, creating new connections. "That's impossible," he whispered. "She succeeded in reverse the degeneration." Helena, watching from a distance, replied, "Then it is true. She created a cure." But Lívia's gaze hardened, or a gun, depending on who uses it. As they watched, the house's power generator began to fail. The microscope went out, and the air became dense, stuffy. Outside, steps on the balcony again. The 2 sisters ran upstairs and watched through the window. 2 men were scouring the grounds with flashlights. Helena shook her sister's hand. "They're after what you just discovered." The tension grew. Lívia took the bottle and hid it inside the old piano in the living room, the same one where her grandmother used to play at night. "If they go in, they can't find anything." Helena turned off the lights and held her breath. Minutes later, the doors began to be forced. The dry sound of sagging wood echoed through the house. Helena pulled Lívia towards the basement, and the 2 hid behind the bookshelves. The boots of the invaders hit the ground hard. Male voices argued in low tones, looking for something specific. "The liquid," one of them was heard to say. "Arthur wants the original samples." Lívia's heart pounded in her chest. Then Helena pointed to the secret panel. "Close now." The footsteps came closer, and for a second, everything seemed to stop. The dust danced in the air, illuminated by flashlight beams. Then, without warning, one of them kicked the panel and revealed the lab. "Here!" he shouted. But luckily for the sisters, the vials had been moved. The men searched for minutes until they gave up. "Take the diary if you find it. The The rest is dispensable." When the car stereo went away, Lívia came out of hiding. His hands trembled, and his eyes were teary. "They will come back, and next time they won't make a mistake with the address." Helena sat on the floor, exhausted. The grandmother died trying to protect this. Now it's our turn to finish what she started. Lívia looked out the window and saw the dawn glare appear through the trees. "If she really found the cure," he murmured, "then we need to decide what's more important, saving lives or save our family." The silence that followed was the answer that neither of them wanted to give. The sun rose covered by heavy clouds, and the forest floor was still damp from the storm. When the engine of the black car echoed again on the dirt road, Helena felt her stomach turn. Arthur Menezes got out of the vehicle calmly, his suit impeccable, as if the mud and danger did not reach him. "Ladies," he said, adjusting his glasses, "can we talk now?"
Lívia stood firm. "We have nothing that belongs to him." Arthur smiled, a gesture too polite to be sincere. "Of course they do. Donacita's research was part of a scientific project, an interrupted project temporarily." He walked to the porch, looking out over the garden. "Do you know what's frustrating? When the genius dies before delivering the last secret." Helena crossed her arms, trying to hide her fear. "You killed her." Arthur sighed theatrically. "She made her choices. We just follow ours." Then he laid out a plasticized contract on the table. "Gencor only wants the intellectual property right over Mrs. Sita Ferreida's discoveries. In return, you gain security and anonymity." Lívia tore the paper in silence. "My grandmother never wanted profit. She believed in healing, not patent." Arthur's smile disappeared. "Idealism is beautiful in books, Doctor, but the world is made of contracts." He leaned slightly, whispering, "You have no idea of the value of what you hide. Millions would die for it, and millions would kill, too." The sisters kept their gaze steady, but inside they trembled. Arthur stepped back, adjusted his jacket, and concluded, "I'll give you some time to think. Tomorrow I'll be back with a final proposal." He got into the car and drove off, leaving only the trail of smoke and the echo of the engine on the road. Helena fell sitting on the porch. "He will come back armed!" For the rest of the day, the two tried to decide what to do. "We can run away," Helena suggested. "Go south, disappear everything." But Lívia shook her head. To run away would be to give up the truth. She took the USB stick that contained the data and watched it in the evening light. If he succeeds in that, he won't stop until he explores the whole world. At night, Helena dreamed of her grandmother, sitting in the rocking chair, murmuring an old song. "Protect the seed, my girl. The cure is only for those who understand the price." When he woke up, tears flowed from his eyes. She decided not to tell her sister about the dream. There was something I needed to do, something that might change everything. As the sun rose again, Lívia noticed that Helena was no longer in the house. In her place, a note stuck on the door. "I went to solve what you can't. Don't look for me." Lívia felt her heart plummet. She ran to the lab and realized the main vial, S47B, was gone. On the horizon, the distant sound of an engine echoed once more. But this time, it didn't seem to come from Arthur. It was Helena, and she took healing with her. Helena drove down the dirt road with her hands shaking on the steering wheel. The glass of the S47B flask reflected the light of dawn, pulsing like a living heart. The plan was simple, or at least she was trying to convince herself of it. "End it all before anyone else dies," she murmured. But deep down, she knew she was reliving the same mistake as in the past, acting alone, hiding the truth from her sister.
When she arrived at the village, she parked her car behind the old church, where an abandoned shed served as a shelter for the curious and those who still talked about Donacita in a low voice. A man was waiting for her at the entrance, the same man who had left the envelope days before. "Did Arthur send you?" she asked. The man smiled, ambiguous. "It depends on what you want to do with what you carry." Helena hid the bottle under her coat, but he already knew.
Meanwhile, in the house, Lívia discovered the absence of her sister and the disappearance of the substance. Desperate, she began to look for clues. In the basement, among the old boxes, he found a second, much older diary with the title Memories of the Mother Plant. Inside were drawings of a rare flower that shone under the moon, the same plant Lívia had seen in her dream. At the end of the pages, a sentence written by her grandmother. Helena kept the seeds. Trust her, even when she lies. Lívia then understood that her grandmother had divided the secret into two parts, the formula and the seeds, and that only together did they form the true cure. She took the car and headed towards the village, guided by a foreboding that burned her inside. "Helena, what are you doing?" she whispered to herself, speeding up. In the shed, the mysterious man locked the doors. "Don't trust them, Helena," he said. "Arthur isn't the only one who wants what his grandmother created." She hesitated. "And who are you, then?" The man removed his hood, revealing a tired face scarred by time. "I worked with Donacita. I was his assistant. She trusted me until the end." Helena took a step back. "If it's true, then help me destroy it." The man looked at the bottle with reverence. "You don't understand. This is not just a cure. It's the chance to reverse death." The silence weighed down. "Your grandmother discovered that the serum could regenerate the brain, but also revive the dead tissue. That's what killed her. The body couldn't stand it." Helena widened her eyes, remembering the night of her grandmother's death, the chemical smell in the air, the broken glass on the floor. She tested it on herself. Before they could continue, a loud bang echoed outside. 2 black cars surrounded the shed. Arthur got out of one of them, flanked by armed security guards. "Oh, here are my girls," he said with that tone of false kindness. "Helena, you were very brave, but predictable." He held out his hand. "Hand over the bottle." Helena held him tightly. "You killed my grandmother, and you're going to pay for it." Arthur laughed, a dry and soulless sound. "She killed herself with her own pride. I just tried to save what's left." He took a step forward, and the man next to Helena reacted. A shot rang out. Chaos. Helena fell to the ground. The bottle rolled and broke, spreading the golden liquid on the cement. The smell filled the air, sweet and metallic. Arthur retreated, annoyed. "Idiot, you don't know what you did." The man fell dead, and Helena, stunned, tried to reach for the broken vial. The liquid seeped into the cracks in the floor, glistening in the sunlight that came through the roof. At that moment, Lívia arrived and saw everything. "My God, what did you do, Helena?" Lívia ran to her sister, helping her to get up. The chemical smell and the distant sound of engines filled the air. Arthur and his men had already fled, taking with them part of the papers that were in the shed. "He can't take that," Helena said, coughing. "There is data on the experiments and about the grandmother." Lívia looked at the floor. The serum slowly ran down the drain, disappearing. Back at the house, the two tried to recover the fragments of information. Lívia reconnected the USB stick to the saved files, and among the corrupted data, found a security video from GenCore. In the images, Donacita sitting on a stretcher with wires attached to her head and her face calm. Arthur appeared in the background, watching. "You are a remarkable woman, but you need to understand the limits of science," the grandmother replied calmly. "The cure was never yours to sell."
The video ended with the screen flashing and a high-pitched sound, followed by silence. Helena cried softly.
She knew they were going to kill her. That's why he made me hide the seeds. Lívia held her sister's hand. And you never told me? Helena looked away. I was afraid that you would try to finish what she started, and lo and behold, I was right. But something caught Lívia's attention. In the background of the video, there was a plant blooming in a pot, pulsing as if breathing. Look at this, he said. She took the plant to the laboratory. This means that there may still be a living sample. Helena shook her head. If it exists, Arthur will find it before we do. That night, the wind blew hard, and the house seemed to move. The sisters heard low voices coming from the garden, as if someone were there. As they stepped out with flashlights, they saw fresh footprints in the wet earth, heading toward the clearing where grandmother used to pick herbs. Helena remained motionless. She always said that the forest holds what is pure. As they followed the footprints, they found a circle of dark flowers, similar to those in Lívia's dream. In the center, a small altar with a clay bowl, inside which was a new seed, identical to those drawn in the diary. Helena fell to her knees. She left another one. Lívia picked her up carefully. It changes everything. But the sound of a branch breaking interrupted the moment. A shadow moved among the trees. "Go home," said a male voice. It was Arthur, holding a gun and smiling in the dark. Nature is fascinating, isn't it? It grows even after being stepped on. The sisters retreated, protecting the seed. Arthur stepped forward, aiming at them. "Give back what is mine, and I promise you will come out alive." Helena, trembling, replied, "That was never yours." A shot rang out, but not from Arthur. A metallic sound from the opposite direction pierced the silence. The shot hit the tree next to him. "Get down!" shouted a female voice. From the middle of the forest, a hooded woman appeared holding a rifle. "Your grandmother taught me everything I know, and I won't let her work end like this." Arthur fled through the trees, and the sisters stood there in shock. "Who are you?" asked Lívia. The woman removed her hood. "You can call me Rosa. I was Donacita's apprentice."
The forest dawned shrouded in a thick mist, and the sound of birds seemed muffled, as if even nature was afraid of what was to come. Rosa, Donacita's apprentice, led the sisters along a secret trail to a shelter hidden behind a waterfall. "She made me promise that she would protect the last fragment of the research," he explained. "But it seems that fate brought you back before its time." Lívia examined the seed found in the clearing, kept inside a small glass. "Is this what is left of the original plant?" he asked. Rosa nodded. "The mother seed. Her grandmother said that she would only flourish if watered with forgiveness." Helena laughed nervously. "Too poetic to be true." But Rosa replied firmly, "With Donacita, poetry and truth were the same thing." As they rested in the shelter, Rosa showed them a metal box covered in symbols. Inside, there were documents and a map marked with a red circle. GenCorps had an underground lab 15 kilometers from here. It was there that they tested the cure, and where she died. Helena felt her body freeze. They did this to her. Lívia closed her eyes, trying to hold back her tears. "If this laboratory still exists, maybe the evidence is there." Rosa agreed, and also the danger. Arthur has men guarding the place, but that's where they need to go if they want to understand what was really created. The sisters looked at each other. There was no turning back. That night, before they left, Rosa handed Lívia a small vial containing a drop of the golden serum. "Use only if absolutely necessary. Your grandmother used to say that the power of healing comes with a price." Helena looked at her sister, suspicious.
"Do you really believe that this is safe?" Rosa replied, "It's not about security, it's about faith." They crossed the forest silently until sunrise. The laboratory was hidden under a disused old medicine factory covered in moss and rust. When they opened a side entrance, they were greeted by a cold and damp corridor. The smell of formaldehyde and oxidized metal made the stomach turn. In the corridors, torn posters still bore the GenCore logo and phrases such as "moving forward for the future of humanity." Lívia ran her hand over a wall and found claw marks, as if someone had tried to escape from there. "My grandmother has been here," he whispered. Helena nodded, her eyes teary. "And he died here too." In a central room, they found patient files and photos of experiments. Men and women with undefined faces connected to pipes and cables. In the corner, a card with the name Cida Ferreira da Silva. Subject showed cognitive improvement followed by total neural collapse. Lívia swallowed her tears. They used her as a guinea pig. But the worst was yet to come. On an old monitor, Rosa was able to turn on the recording system. The image of Arthur, younger, talking to Doña Cida emerged. "You can't control what nature has created," she said. Arthur replied, "But I can profit from it." The video ended with a scream and the sound of breaking glass. Helena turned off the monitor, furious. "I'm going to kill that man." Rosa put her hand on her shoulder. "It is not with hatred that we defeat monsters. It's with light." And then an alarm began to ring. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "They know we're here!" shouted Lívia. And for the first time, even the forest seemed to hold its breath. Sirens echoed through the underground tunnels as the sisters ran through the narrow corridors. Helena held the lantern firmly, and Lívia protected the seed against her breast. Behind them, heavy footsteps approached. Rosa pointed to an emergency staircase. "This way!" Shouts and orders mingled in the air. Time seemed to melt. At the top of the stairs, they came to a circular room. In the center, a steel table with a flask identical to the one they had lost, S47B. "They managed to recreate it," murmured Lívia.
Around it, documents and samples of the mother plant preserved in tubes. Rosa, impressed, said, "She did not die in vain. Part of it is still alive here." But Helena, with her eyes fixed on the bottle, shook her head. "This is a curse. This substance killed our grandmother. It will destroy anyone who tries to use it." Lívia replied with restrained anger, "And it will heal millions if it falls into the right hands." The conflict between reason and fear reignited, as intense as the sound of sirens. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the speakers. "Welcome back to the cradle of creation." Arthur Menezes appeared on the catwalk above them, smiling. "You know, Doña Cida has always believed in miracles, but the real miracle is control." He went down slowly, with 2 security guards by his side. "You have something that belongs to me, and I came to get it." Helena placed herself between him and her sister. "You killed our grandmother." Arthur replied coldly. "She killed herself, trying to beat death. I just helped her see the truth." Lívia took the bottle and backed away. "The truth is, she's created something you'll never understand." Arthur laughed, sarcastic. "Oh, I totally understand. I understand the value." The security guards advanced, and a chaotic fight ensued. Rosa knocked one of them down with a well-aimed blow, while Helena tried to stop Arthur from reaching the table. In the commotion, the flask fell, and the liquid spread across the floor, forming small golden veins that shone brightly. The electrical system began to fail. Arthur shouted, "You don't know what you've done!" But it was too late. The serum reacted to contact with the moisture, and a sweet metallic smell filled the air.
The lights flickered, and the ground shook slightly. Rosa pulled the sisters out. "We need to get out of here now!" As they ran down the hallway, flashes of light showed visions, memories of grandmother, laughter, hastily written formulas, and her voice saying, "It's not the healing that matters, but the one who carries it." Lívia cried, not knowing if what she saw was real or a hallucination caused by the chemical gas. They managed to reach the exit a few seconds before an explosion shook the laboratory. Flames and smoke rose through the tunnels, illuminating the surrounding forest. Lying on the floor, exhausted, they saw the smoke form the outline of a serene face, that of their grandmother. Helena, panting, whispered, "She has forgiven us." But before they could get up, a sound behind them made them both turn around. Among the shadows, staggering and covered in ashes, Arthur Menezes was still alive. "None of this is over," he said with a bloody smile. "The whole world will know what you've destroyed." The explosion in the lab left the forest shrouded in smoke and ash. The sisters ran without looking back, their lungs burning and their hearts beating like a war drum. Rosa, injured, stayed behind, insisting that they continue. "Save the seed!" he shouted, before disappearing among the trees. Lívia held the small metal capsule where the seed was kept, the last vestige of her grandmother's legacy. But the relief was short-lived. A crack behind them, and the sound of a gunshot. Helena turned and saw Lívia fall, grazed on the shoulder. Before she could react, hooded men emerged from the shadows. Arthur Menezes walked ahead of them, his clothes singed, his gaze feverish. "I said the world would know," he murmured, "and you'll help me with that."
Helena tried to fight, but was restrained. Take the doctor. Leave the sister with remorse. Those words were the last thing she heard before she was pushed against a tree and lost consciousness. When he woke up, the sun was already rising. The ground around was scorched, and only the distant echo of engines broke the silence. Lívia had been taken. For hours, Helena wandered through the forest, wounded and desperate. The memories of childhood came back like knives. She and Lívia playing in the kitchen while Donacita mixed herbs and sang softly. "Love heals everything, my girls, even what science doesn't understand." The words echoed now like a cruel reminder. He found shelter in an abandoned hut and treated his wounds with what was left of the herbs Rosa had left. On the ground, he drew a map with charcoal, trying to deduce where Arthur could have taken his sister. He remembered the video in the lab. GenCore had a second facility listed as Sector 7 reactivated. It was there. Meanwhile, in an underground warehouse of the company, Lívia woke up handcuffed to a stretcher. The sound of machinery sounded like a metallic pulse. Arthur watched from afar, his gaze tired and triumphant. "You're smart, Doctor. Your grandmother was a visionary, but she lacked courage. I can finish what she started." Lívia tried to let go of her hands, but the handcuffs tightened. "You're going to turn what she's created into a weapon." Arthur smiled. A controlled cure is the most lucrative form of warfare. He approached, placing a syringe on the table. "Let's do a test. A little bit of you, a little bit of her. Science and heritage mixed." She looked at the syringe and for the first time felt the genuine fear of death. But there was also anger. The anger of injustice, greed, and silence. "You'll never understand what she wanted, Arthur." He replied nonchalantly, "And you'll never have a choice." As he prepared the compost, Lívia remembered Rosa's instruction. Use the jar only if necessary. In her blouse pocket, hidden under the cuffs, she still kept a drop of the original serum, pure, untouched, and a plan began to be born. Helena followed the map to a secluded road that led to a complex of abandoned sheds. With each kilometer, memories of her sister propelled her. "You have always believed in reason, Lívia.
I just want to bring you back home." She found one of the gates partially open, and the distant sound of generators indicated that there were people inside. She set up an improvised plan. With metal parks and gasoline from the hut, she built small explosive traps, improvised but effective. In the glove compartment of the car, she kept her grandmother's diary, now stained with blood and soot. On the last pages, there was an underlined phrase, "Life flourishes in sacrifice." Helena knew what that meant. Inside the laboratory, Arthur watched the monitors while Lívia tried to gain time. "You think you can control what you don't even understand. Nature always takes its toll." He ignored it, injecting the new compound into a sample of brain tissue. The cells began to pulse, multiplying. "Look, doctor, this is immortality."
Helena managed to infiltrate through the back, disabling cameras with exposed wires. The sound of the machines echoed through the corridors, mixed with the dripping of pipes and the electric hum. She saw Lívia through an observation glass. "I'm here, sis," she whispered, holding back tears. Suddenly, Arthur noticed something on the monitor, movement on the perimeter. "We have company," he said, irritated. "Check." Helena took advantage of the distraction and entered the control room. In silence, she positioned the explosives near the chemical tanks, ready to detonate with a timer of a few minutes. Meanwhile, Lívia feigned weakness. "You will never be able to reproduce what my grandmother did," she teased. Arthur laughed. "I've done it." At that moment, the alarm went off. The lights flickered, and the ventilation system began to fail. Helena appeared at the door, detonator in hand. "Enough, Arthur." He looked at her with contempt. "You wouldn't have the courage." Helena took a deep breath. "It's not courage, it's love." And he pressed the button. The ground shook. Flames rose from the tanks, and the fire began to spread. Lívia, still handcuffed, shouted, "Helena, no!" Arthur tried to run, but a beam collapsed between them. In the middle of the smoke, Helena reached her sister and broke the handcuffs with an iron blow. The two of them ran down the aisle together, the flames behind them roaring like a hungry animal. "Have you gone crazy?" cried Lívia. Helena replied, "Maybe, but now no one is going to have that curse." The sisters managed to get out through a side exit, moments before the main explosion. The entire shed was engulfed in fire. On the floor, Helena fell to her knees, exhausted. Lívia hugged her, crying, "You could have died." Helena smiled weakly. "I know, but at least we lived long enough to fix what she left." Behind them, the night sky was illuminated by columns of fire. The sound of explosions echoed through the forest, as if the world itself had decided to start over. The silence after the explosion was almost deafening. The forest, once alive, now seemed to hold its breath. Helena and Lívia walked with difficulty among the ashes and debris. The smell of smoke mixed with burnt iron hung in the air. "Is it over?" asked Helena, her voice hoarse. Lívia looked back and replied quietly, "Not yet." From the smoke, a figure staggered, covered in soot, his face scarred with burns. Arthur Menezes was still alive. He had an insane smile, and in his hands, an intact bottle. "Do you think you won? I got what I needed." He held up the golden vial. "One drop is enough." Lívia took a step forward, her heart racing. "If you inject that, you're going to die." Arthur laughed, a hoarse, sickly sound. "To die? I will transcend. Donacita did not understand her own gift, but I will be eternal." Helena tried to reach him, but he had already pierced the skin of his arm with the syringe. For a few seconds, nothing happened. But then his body began to shake violently. Golden veins spread across her neck, and her eyes shone with a metallic hue. "See," he said, panting, "the mind expands, the body, it adapts." But soon the smile faded.
blood began to boil under his skin, and he fell to his knees, screaming. Lívia tried to run to him, but Helena held her. "Don't touch him!" Arthur's body convulsed, muscles writhing in impossible directions. The golden liquid dripped from his eyes and mouth like molten tears. "He's unraveling," murmured Lívia, horrified. Helena looked away. The grandmother tried to warn her. No human body can carry the power of pure healing. Minutes later, all that was left of it was a pile of ash and broken glass. The jar rolled to Lívia's feet, cracked, still shining inside. She crouched down and saw, in the midst of the golden residue, a small speck of seed, just like the one she kept. "He had a copy," she said, frightened. Helena took a deep breath. So the curse still lives. The two buried what was left of the compound in a hole near the river. "This is where it all ends," Helena said, covering the earth with her hands. But the sound of the wind blowing through the trees seemed to respond in whispers. "Nothing ends. Everything starts again." At night, they lit a fire and watched the flames dance. Lívia looked up at the sky, the same sky her grandmother contemplated as she mixed herbs. "She wanted to heal the world, Helena, and we just managed to destroy it a little more." His sister put her hand on his shoulder. "Maybe destroying the wrong is the first step to curing the right." As the fire consumed the last vestige of Arthur Menezes, a figure appeared at the top of the hill. Rosa, alive, with her arm bandaged. "I said that the forest protects those who believe," she said, with a tired smile. "But there's something you need to see. Mrs. Sida, it left more than you think." Rosa led the sisters to the old house, now partially burned, but still standing. Dawn gilded the soot-covered windows. "Before she died, she gave me something to keep," Rosa said, taking out of her coat a small metal capsule identical to the one Lívia was carrying. 2 keys, 2 guardians. Lívia opened the capsule, and inside was a handwritten message in her grandmother's delicate handwriting. "If the cure falls into the wrong hands, burn it. But if love survives the pain, let it flourish." The words seemed to pulsate, as if they contained a life of their own. Helena swallowed. So she knew all of this would happen. In the backyard where the ashes were still smoking, Lívia dug a small hole and planted the last seed. The earth was warm, alive. "Is she going to die here?" asked Helena. Lívia shook her head. "She will be born, but this time in the right way." Rosa smiled. "Nature understands time that we don't." Days passed. The sisters rebuilt part of the house with the help of the villagers, who began to return, curious and thrilled by what they heard. Old Sida left a miracle in the hands of her granddaughters. Lívia didn't correct anyone. Helena just watched the garden grow, silent.
One morning, the impossible happened. From the charred soil, a green sprout began to emerge. The leaves shone with a golden hue at the touch of the sun. The air around him became lighter. The smell of ancient herbs filled the space again. "It's her," whispered Lívia, "the mother plant." Helena knelt before the flower and wept in silence. She didn't want it to be about money, science, or power. It was about hope. Lívia nodded with tears in her eyes. And about forgiveness. She brought us together to heal what was between us. Rosa watched them from a distance, moved. Dona Sida said that each generation has its disease and its own cure. You have found yours. The wind blew, shaking the golden leaves. A faint glow ran down the stem of the plant, as if thanking you. That night, as the starry sky reflected on the rebuilt roof, the sisters lit a candle on the windowsill. The flame flickered, and for a moment formed the outline of the grandmother's smiling face.
"You have learned," murmured a soft voice. "Now leave the rest to the land." The silence that followed was no longer one of fear, but of peace. For the first time in a long time, the house seemed alive, not with secrets, but with memories. The same forest that had witnessed pain now whispered promises of rebirth. And in the garden, under the full moon, the golden flower bloomed completely, illuminating the night as if Dona Sida's spirit returned to breathe through her. Months had passed since the explosion. The forest, once scarred by smoke and destruction, now flourished with renewed strength. The grandmother's house had been rebuilt almost completely, but what had really been reborn was the bond between the sisters. Lívia and Helena's laughter echoed again through the rooms, mixed with the sound of pots and pans. For the first time, the place didn't look like a tomb. It felt like home. In the garden, the golden plant grew strong, surrounded by a field of new herbs. The sun reflected on the petals as if they were liquid gold. Lívia watched the sprouts and wrote them in a new diary, not her grandmother's, but her own. He called it the True Life Project. She didn't want us to hide the knowledge, only to use it with respect, she said to the visitors. Helena helped to take care of the space, but her gaze was more contemplative than scientific. "I thought her legacy was a formula," he said one day, watering the plants. "But I understood that it was a lesson. What is not born of love dies of greed." Lívia smiled. Maybe what grandmother wanted to cure most of all was us. Gradually, the village began to approach. Local doctors, biologists, and healers began to visit the place, attracted by the rumors of the flower that resurrected hope. Lívia shared part of the discoveries, but kept secret about the true DNA of the plant. "Science needs to move slowly when the heart runs fast," she told the visitors. One morning, a letter arrived, with no sender. Inside there was an old photo, Dona Sida young, next to Rosa and an unknown man, the same assistant who had died in the shed. Behind the photo, a sentence written in the grandmother's handwriting. "Healing is a circle. What is lost is reborn in other hands."
Helena held the photo carefully, moved. She knew until the end that everything would come back to us. In the afternoon, a group of children from the village appeared, asking to visit the garden of Grandmother Sida. Helena guided them to the golden plant. "Is she magical?" asked a girl. Helena smiled. "No, it just reminds us of what love is capable of healing." The children sat around, listening to stories of the woman who united science and soul in the same gesture. Lívia, watching from afar, felt that her grandmother was there, in every leaf, in every breath of wind. In the evening, he wrote in his diary, "She did not create the cure for diseases. He created the cure for humanity, and we're just the gardeners of what she started." Over time, the house became a refuge for researchers and healers. A small institute was born there, a non-profit institute dedicated to the fusion of ancestral knowledge and modern medicine. They called it the Dona Sida Ferreira Institute. At the gate, a sign read, "Here, healing grows with love." On a last night, while the wind blew softly and the stars covered the sky, Helena went out into the garden. The golden plant swayed slightly, and a petal detached, falling into his palm. A glow ran through his arm, warm and serene. "Thank you, Grandma," she whispered. As he turned to enter, a new sprout appeared from the ground, smaller but equally golden. And in the distance, the sound of the wind seemed to repeat the same words that had accompanied them from the beginning. Not all healing must be revealed, but every truth deserves to flourish. If this story touched you, remember, some cures don't come from science, they come from love. Subscribe to the channel and stay with us, because the next family secret could be the strongest of all.